is not depicted too accurately because as much as I do like it, they do paint Brad Pitt's character as a little more likable because the actual Achilles was a huge dick. I mean, he actually, when he killed Hector, yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah.
When he killed Hector, he actually strapped him to the chariot and rode around the city of Troy like a couple nights and days saying, I killed Hector! I killed Hector! So, yeah, by the way, Real Sharks, we love history, and we're pretty good at history, too, if you haven't guessed it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, Troy, this is the love-hate relationship I have with this film, and it's just based off of my mood. I'm not going to say it's a terrible movie, even though I've said that numerous times in the past. Just based on historical presence alone, I would give this movie a nod. It is definitely worth going to see. If you want to go see something that's based in ancient Rome and you're like, okay.
You mean ancient Greece.
Yeah, ancient Greece, excuse me. If you really want to see that and you're like, am I going to get the presence that I want? Yes and no. Because the battle sequences, here's the only problem I have with it. Super duper early CGI. And you're like, yep, that's CGI. I can tell that's some CGI going on.
I disagree. I think it has one great prop effect.
You see, that's the thing where it's like some people will agree, some people will disagree.
I think the retelling too of like how Achilles died is amazing too.
That's a high point about the movie because again, this is movie and you have to kind of have some type of movie ending. But yeah, the acting wasn't bad. That's what I mean. Like these are A-list actors in a piece like this that actually worked, and it's just funny. I like how Odysseus was played by Sean Bean, the guy who dies in like everything.
Yeah.
He was played. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, this is a fantastic movie. I'm gonna give this a solid 7.
I give this 8.5.
And yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9. All right, all my real sharks.
Ready your breakfast and eat hearty. But tonight, we dine in hell!
And welcome back to Movies of Antiquity on the Real Sharks podcast. Okay, here's one I'm actually going to give a pretty low rating, actually. I'm going to give it a 4, actually. And that is The Eagle 2011, starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Bell. I gotta tell you, I really despise this film. Now, it's not just because I don't like Channing Tatum, don't get me wrong, and believe me, this host doesn't. I just don't think, I just think it's unfair that Kevin Costner has all those Razzies and people say he's a terrible actor, but it's like Channing Tatum's not right next to him? Okay. Anyway. The Eagle, though, The Eagle had potential. However, I don't know what they were trying to get away with, or if they just kind of wrote it as in, we got this really, really cool action scene in the beginning of when the guy shows up, he takes command, and all of a sudden, all these Britons are going to come out and just storm the whole camp and try to kill us and everything. It's going to be this awesome action scene, and then we're going to totally change the pace of the story. And then it's going to be about retrieving the lost eagle, which ended up basically turning into a Lord of the Rings-ish kind of film. And I gotta tell you, it was god-awful. I think it's a terrible, terrible, terrible film. One I do not recommend. Not as a film of antiquity, or just an overall in general film. It's pretty bad. So that's The Eagle.
100% agree. This is one of those films where it's just so... You're going to go to sleep because it's so boring. When they start going after the quest for the eagle, you're just like... Hurry up. And that's not what you want to hear out of a film, especially like this. You're just like, who cares? The costumes in some areas are okay, I guess.
Oh, no. I mean, the props are good.
They're okay.
The chariot scenes, with the Britons and stuff. The Britons look like Britons. I mean, it does look good. They got the war paint on and everything. It looks good.
It looks good. But
it's a good film.
Did you care about it, though?
No. After the part where they start searching for the eagle, I'm like, who cares?
You're just like, okay, whatever. You clock out of it. So yeah, for that one, I'm totally gonna agree. A 4 out of 10.
Yeah, I saw this probably a couple years after it came out, and I watched probably about half of it. I couldn't stand it too much or any longer. I'm thinking, oh my god, this is so boring. The only good part was in the beginning. All the action, the chariot scene, all that was fantastic. But as soon as you You see them go on the quest. Oh yeah, it's amazing. And then, oh, what happens? Oh, betrayal. Uh-oh. I honestly, this is terrible. I rate this one as one of even Channing Tatum's like worst movies he's ever done. But I'm gonna give this actually a 2.
All right. Now that we had some bad, let's put a good taste in your mouth. This one might be a little controversial for some of you. I actually enjoy this film. Quo Vadis, 1951, starring Robert Taylor as Marcus Viserius, Peter Ustinov, as Nero, Deborah Kerr, Leo Grin, and Patricia Laffin. I gotta tell you, this movie is actually about a Roman military officer who falls in love with a Christian woman at the time when Roman paganism is dominant and Christianism is very frowned upon in the empire and persecuted. And it's a typical Romeo and Juliet kind of film, but it's done very good. There's some very interesting scenes in this movie with the gladiator fights in which they used real lions to depict some eating these dummies. I mean, it looks terrible, but it's awesome for the time. I mean, if you're watching it, you're gonna go, "Oh, that was cool! That was cool!" when they tried to do that back in the day. I actually do like this film, not just because of and I'm not a big romance guy, but I actually do enjoy the romance of this film. I do enjoy the music of it as well. The acting is really, really, really something you can really get a hold of in this film and get into the characters. I mean, especially for an older film like this, it's hard to get into those kind of films. But when you see such brilliant acting as it's portrayed in this film, you really get into it. And I really recommend this movie.
Yeah, because of the acting. Again, you've nailed it. This is again one of these movies that, based in antiquity, you're hoping that the acting alone is going to be carrying it, because there's no dramatic music tones. It's just, again, like I've said before, the camera's rolling. There's 2 or a couple actors on the screen. Go, and you need to believe that you are the character, and you believe it. You believe it. Every scene isn't always quite good, like you said. It is the Romeo and Juliet story arc, kind of, in a way. I can kind of see that, but
it's typical for those 1960s films.
Yeah,
it's always like those Romeo and or like, oh, it's the story of where, you know, love will prevail over everything because they can't have each other because it's this weird situation. Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, them against the world type thing.
Exactly.
So, that's what I was getting at. But again, it was good. And I would give this a good 7.5, just because if you enjoy the art of acting in a film, especially in antiquity, you're going to enjoy this film.
All right. Here's another one that's actually same era too. 1961, Atlantis, the Lost Continent. This is another story of a Romeo and Juliet. Basically, it's about a fisherman in the Aegean Sea who basically finds a Atlantean princess, and he brings her back home. And in his trouble, basically, he becomes a slave. And it's the whole story of, like, there's sorcery involved and the fall of Atlantis and all those pop cultures you see of Atlantis falling when they actually talk about it. It comes from this movie. The acting is actually pretty good. The story, again, is a Romeo and Juliet kind of story. However, the props are good and bad at the same time. Because it is a mythical period piece, they don't know where to go with some of the costumes. So when they actually depict the people in Atlantis, I mean, they're like half in armor, half like male armor, chainmail, weird Hungarian helmets. I mean, it's pretty cheesy. I mean, the Greek part they get correct, but the Atlantis part is something to be desired. I mean, they're actually in a submarine too, the Atlanteans. So it's actually kind of a film ahead of its time when it's talking about Atlantis. So it's actually, I would say it's a film where we got every inspiration we have for Atlantis, how the Atlanteans live under the ocean. Well, they live in a submarine. You know, it's all their advanced technology they have and everything. But overall, I think it's a decent film. I give it a 5. Actually, no, sir. I give it a 6.
Yeah, this is this film reminds me of something like a lot of the Bruce Lee films. They are great classics because Bruce Lee's in them and they have memorable scenes. Kind of like this. There's some scenes that they're like, okay, those are cool, but yeah, you're totally right about that. Where some dude walks in chainmail, it's like, what is he doing here? Why is that even existing right now? That should not exist in this period. But I feel like this is just a fun film.
Yeah.
I had fun watching it. I didn't take it seriously because I once you start seeing some like weird stuff, like when they start going to the slaves, I was just like, okay, I'm a little out of it. But then you pay attention, like you said, about the Atlanteans, because it was one of the first films that kind of tackled that, and no one was caring about it.
It actually, in the beginning, it's almost like ancient aliens. They say, how do all these cultures coexist together? And Atlantis, and how they all like look alike and build pyramids and all that.
It's like a Twilight Zone like movie. It's kind of crazy for its time.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Here's another one that's kind of crazy for the time. Not really, but I actually really enjoy it. In fact, I would say this is probably one of the most underrated, under the radar, great films I have ever seen is Centurion 2010. When I picked up this movie, I went in, had no expectations, but not only did it like exceed expectations, it blew me away. I mean, I have seen the typical chase 'em film, where basically, you chase the main characters to their death and it ends in a whole big caper at the end. I mean, we've seen it in like Apocalypto, 10,000 BC. We see it all the time. But this one, man, the execution was good. I mean, it had some great actors in it. I mean, it had Neil Marshall, Olga Kurylenko, Michael Fassbender, Dominic West. It had Liam Cunningham, Davos, and Game of Thrones, Alexis Carolyn, Ulrich Thompson, Paul Freeman, Dave Lengo, David Morse. I mean, it had a lot of actors in this movie. Great movie. For those of you who don't know, it's about the Romans and Britain. Basically, they get ambushed by the Britons. Well, they get betrayed by a Briton who's supposed to be helping them by a female one.
A tracker.
Yes, and basically the whole movie is them trying to get to the safety of a fort, and it is a brutal film. Little love interest. There's a little romanticism in it. But overall, action-packed, great character arcs. I mean, it makes the villains in this film you legitimately hate. I mean, you don't want to hate the Britons in this film. Oh, and they look like Britons too.
I was gonna say, when you see the armors, no, you kind of hate them.
No, yeah.
But the Bretons in this movie, like when you look at them, I mean, they got the blue paint on and everything, but they are vicious. And the Romans are invading their country, but man, do you hate them? I mean, they are vicious. But Centurion, great film. I rate this movie like, I rate it up there. I'd rate it a good 8. I think it's a great under-the-radar movie.
I was watching this movie last night, and, I did some back reading on this too, loosely based on the true story of what happened with the Ninth Legion, and there's so much speculation of what truly happened to them, because they were originally marked down as lost. They have no idea what happened to them, and with this, he comes up with an idea for what happens and how they're portrayed.
What you just mentioned is exactly what the movie Eagle tried to be.
Yes!
Eagle tried to be Centurion. I know that sounds funny, and Centurion was a lower budget film. Oh, yeah. And it's really funny because Centurion came out first, and then Eagle came out after, but it was like Eagle basically tried to be like Centurion in a really shitty way. But I don't know. I mean, it was like instead of running, we'll walk, and instead of hating the enemies, we'll love them.
Right?
But they were both essentially about the same thing. But I always tell people, man, don't watch Eagle. Just watch Centurion. It's the way better version of the story.
Oh, it was. And I loved Dominic West in this movie. He did a really great job with his role of Virus. You just felt for him. I mean, just see how he gets betrayed. Even the way he dies was brutal. I mean, he goes into this death fight with the person that betrayed him, and just seeing him at the end just gas and start getting slashed. He gets stabbed in the heart. Spoilers, everyone, but I love this movie. I give this a 9.
Yeah, I might get a little flack from you guys. I didn't have that much of an emotional attachment when watching it.
Centurion?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was pretty good. You know what I would give this film is this might be that I was looking at all these films. It might be the greatest movie that had the best costumes. Like the costumes were
the Bretons,
top notch for a low budget film, because you can see where the money went. Yeah, it didn't go into the scenes or stuff like that. It was basically they just filmed it in the woods. But the armor was like badass. The acting was pretty good. But it was just, the movie was just very one long, intense ride, and that's what you want to see.
All right. And of course, we got to